Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning because we have a busy show. Not only do we have a lot to cover, we want to read your comments, count your waves, but also the second group of students from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. We separated it into two groups. The first group, we got to see what their thoughts initially of our area. Now, this group has already spent some time, nearly a week, in our beautiful region. So we're going to talk to them about their trip. After the students from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy, which is, by the way, Corning's sister city, will be talking with Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker. So that is in the 7 o'clock hour. So we've got a lot to get to in the 6 o'clock hour. Let's jump right in, shall we, with viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Hegseth orders a rare urgent meeting of hundreds of generals and admirals for next week. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. And Trump threatens mass firing if the government shuts down. We've got that as well. Thank you, Mark. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning. Good morning. This is the first time the president of the U.S. walked into the United Nations without applause. Remember 5 years ago when Newt Gingrich tried to, quote, spread a conspiracy theory, end quote, about George Soros? Multiple Fox News hosts and other media outlets, I remember at the time, shut him down or criticized him, leading to an awkward silence. During the latest Trump signing, the press kept pushing him until he offered a name. I was surprised when he didn't get shut down when he mentioned George. Yes, George Soros has become, it's more commonly, I guess, accepted. I mean, it's factual. At the time, there was a weird pushback, and I don't remember what it was. It was quite a while ago. Why you couldn't even mention George Soros' name, which was a kind of an extra level of weird to that, because we know he's throwing around so much money, it raised questions. So I appreciate that comment. Comment from a different viewer. This was right after yesterday's program. Is there a way to reach out to whoever may be trying to open a Turning Point USA chapter at the Corning Painted Post High School? Well, a couple things here. I don't know if they are trying to open a Turning Point USA chapter. I don't know if they already have one. As for reaching out to whoever may be trying to start one or maybe who leads it, I don't know. I will put that out to the viewers. If anybody has any connection there, please let me know. I'd love to have an interview with whoever started it or whoever. I don't know if there's a teacher involved, whatever the case may be. And I'd just like to know if there is one. And I brought that question up yesterday on the program. If any of our schools in this area, Corning, Horseheads, Elmira, wherever, if there is a Turning Point USA chapter. I know the requests that they've received since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and specifically after the memorial service on Sunday, I know there has been a huge outpour. What did they say, 120,000, something like that, or more than that? The spokesperson for TPUSA said that they're on pace to have a chapter in every high school and on every college campus, which is wonderful news. So if you know of a chapter, maybe your child, your grandchild is involved in that, let me know. I'd love to know. All right, the breaking news yesterday. Former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction of justice. We had brought this to you yesterday, I believe it was, that it looked as if there was at least indication that this would happen because the statute of limitations would expire on the 30th. So we knew that if it was going to happen, it would have to be very quick. And that's exactly what happened. James Comey was indicted by a federal grand jury yesterday on charges of making false statements and obstruction of justice. And President Trump applauded that justice in America. We're going to talk about it more in depth because we do have a lot of updates and a lot of breaking stories I want to kick off the program with. But this is arguably, not much of an argument, the biggest story of the morning. Comey is the highest-ranking former federal official to face charges in connection with a long-running FBI investigation into alleged collusion between Trump's presidential campaign back in 2016 and Russian officials. The former top lawman faces up to 5 years in prison if convicted of both counts. He is expected to turn himself in today. That's according to CNN's Caitlin Collins. The case has been assigned to District Judge Michael Nachmanoff, an appointee of former President Joe Biden, who is slated to arraign Comey on October 9th at a federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. Comey has retained former federal prosecutor Patrick Fitzgerald to represent his case. We're going to tell you what Trump had to say, what some of the talking heads had to say about this. The left is somewhat in a tizzy over this, if you will. Attorney General Pam Bondi releasing a statement yesterday saying no one is above the law. Today's indictment reflects this Department of Justice's commitment to holding those who abuse positions of power accountable for misleading the American people. We will follow the facts in this case. The charges, Lindsay Halligan, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, added, the charges are alleged in this case represent a breach of the public trust at an extraordinary level. The balance of power is a bedrock principle of our democracy and relies upon accountability and a forthright presentation of facts from executive leadership to congressional oversight. Any intent to avoid, evade, prevent, or obstruct compliance is a violation of professional responsibility and, most importantly, the law. The two-page indictment hinges on an exchange Comey had with Senator Ted Cruz back in September of 2020, during which the former FBI director denied authorizing leaks to media outlets related to the Trump investigation, in a separate probe into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's use of a private server to store sensitive emails. We don't need to go into the whole back and forth on this. You will see that over and over. The indictment states that statement was false because, as James B. Comey Jr. then and there knew, he in fact had authorized Person 3 to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning Person 1. By making the false statement, Comey attempts to corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede. So that is where that stands this morning. Now, it says here that Comey says his heart is broken. My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. That is his statement he released on a Substack that I guess, I don't know. I don't really understand the Substack thing. But my heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judiciary system, and I'm innocent, so let's have a trial and keep the faith, he said in his statement. So there we are. That is the update this morning. We've got a few other updates. We're going to talk about that more in depth a little bit later on in the program. I don't want to kick off an in-depth conversation right here at 6 o'clock. We want everybody involved. But your thoughts on the indictment of James Comey. Now, to Mark's point, and this is getting a lot of attention this morning as well as a breaking story, Pete Hegseth orders a rare and urgent meeting of hundreds of generals and admirals. And they are to gather on short notice. And as of now, there is no stated reason. This is, well, in some cases, depending on what outlet you go, it says that it's sowing confusion and alarm, and also creates quite a security situation. According to the Washington Post, the highly unusual directive was sent to virtually all of the military's top commanders worldwide, according to more than a dozen people familiar with the matter. It was issued earlier this week against the backdrop of a potential government shutdown, and as Hegseth's overtly political moves have deepened a sense of distress among his opponents, who fear that he is erasing the Defense Department's status as a nonpartisan institution. We know that it depends on what outlet you go to. It'll be the Department of Defense or the Department of War. As you can tell, the Washington Post prefers the Department of Defense. In a statement, Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell affirmed that Hegseth will be addressing his senior military leaders early next week, but offered no new details. It was not clear whether President Trump will attend the meeting or if Hegseth had given the president advance notice of his plans. He told reporters in the Oval Office yesterday afternoon that he will go if they want me. Despite the meeting's size and secrecy, both Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance downplayed its significance, with saying here, "Why is it a big deal?" said Trump. "It's not particularly unusual that generals are speaking with Hegseth. I think it's odd that you guys have made it such a big story. There are about 800 generals and admirals spread across the United States and dozens of other countries and time zones. Hegseth's order, people familiar with the matter said, applies to all senior officers with the rank of brigadier general or above, or their Navy equivalent, serving in command positions and their top enlisted advisors. Typically, each of these officers oversee hundreds of thousands of rank and file troops. So that is a rather large story this morning, one that is getting a lot of attention. Your thoughts on it at a time when things are very... Well, it raises a lot of questions, of course, for better or for worse. It does. People are wondering if it has to do with Russia, Ukraine, and what it has to do with. Is there something we don't know about? The security issues of it all. We will, I'm sure, learn more in the not too distant future. Speaking of Russia, yesterday, in another breaking story, Ukrainian President Zelensky warned that the Kremlin will become a target and Russian officials should check for bomb shelters in Moscow if it does not stop its invasion of Ukraine. This is Axios reporting this yesterday. Zelensky telling Axios they have to know where their bomb shelters are. They need it. If they will not stop the war, they will need it in any case. He continued, my goal is to finish the war. And this was a big story yesterday, that he will not, this again, Zelensky will not run for, I guess you would call it a second term when the war ends. He said he does not want to seek to remain in power once peace comes. So that, another breaking story yesterday. Now, I know you're all wondering, Frank, do we have any updates on the escalator? Well, guess what? I do have an update on the escalator incident at the UN where the escalator stopped as Melania and Donald Trump started up. It could have caused quite a... well, at least at the very least, the bad optics of the president or the first lady falling down and getting hurt. Luckily, it did not do that. Many calling it sabotage. The president looking to investigate who was involved in it, to look at videos to see who stopped it, because the Times of London was reporting that many staffers were joking that they would do that, make them walk up the stairs or, again, have the bad optics of him falling down, which would have went viral. So the president called for arrests. But we're going to give you an update on that. A couple other quick updates, and we're going to talk more about James Comey. So weigh in this morning. And we have so many special guests. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Some viewer comments here as I put them all together in one convenient place. First up from this viewer, James Comey's indictment is long overdue. Yeah, I think that's so typical of Washington in many ways, or I guess the political scene. It's always the last minute. Same with the government shutdown, right? I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying, why is it that we're less than a week out before the statute of limitations runs out, and that's when it's done? I think many people thought this should have been done quite some time ago. It's frustrating. We talk about the frustration of investigations so often on this program. Mark writes in, I did see a clip where they said Hegseth might be gathering the generals and admirals to weed them out because he said earlier he was going to reduce them by 20%. Oh, maybe that's why they're all so nervous. That could very well be the case. I did not see that. I have seen some speculation as to what's happening, but it's all just pure speculation. Very much could be. Oh, hey, we got a Climate Fact Friday, Bob. We'll get to that a little bit later on. I like to keep people hooked for that. And here's an exciting one. Hi from Canisteo. Well, hello from Canisteo. It's great to have you joining us. We love to hear where you're from. Keep tuning in. We love the people of Canisteo. Okay, your update on the escalator. United Nations Ambassador Mike Waltz. He called the mishap during, and I think mishap is an understatement, during President Trump's UN speech unacceptable. He even vowed to withhold U.S. funding until sweeping reforms are made. Many have compared it to sabotage. He was on Kudlow, where host Larry Kudlow noted that the escalator malfunctioned as Trump and First Lady Melania Trump arrived. The teleprompter later failed, and finally the auditorium sound cut out. Waltz added that the broadcast audio abruptly switched to Portuguese during Trump's speech before returning to English. He said the whole thing is unacceptable. The whole thing stinks. There's 150 world leaders there, and this only happens to him, not once, not twice, but 3 times. As the ambassador, I said, you've got to open your doors, and some people are kind of shoulder shrugging at this. This could have been incredibly serious. It's insulting, and it's right here on American soil. Good point that it's on American soil. Also, it could have been very serious. Just the image of the president or Melania getting hurt, falling down, whatever the case may be on the escalator, that is, I think, what their ultimate goal was, for some type of embarrassment, some type of viral clip, whoever these actors were. But it should be investigated. And it's good to hear Mike Waltz talking tough on this. He then returned to reform, criticizing the UN's bloated bureaucracy and noting that 7 agencies focus on climate issues alone. He argued the organization needs to be cut up and reformed before U.S. taxpayer money flows again. He confirmed the U.S. has withheld its UN contribution this year. Quote, we've withheld this year. We haven't paid any. And my first meeting with the Secretary General was, here are the reforms that we need to see before you start taking our taxpayers' dollars. So there we are. There's your escalator update on this Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. Just a quick couple... I got a couple. I know we're going to talk a lot about James Comey. Feel free to weigh in. We're just going to not put it off, but we've got a couple other stories that I think are worth mentioning, especially updates from throughout the week. This is one you can find at the New York Post. We're not going to dive into it too deep, but we've been mentioning, obviously, Jimmy Kimmel a lot lately, and people comparing him to Keith Olbermann, who has gone unhinged, who has gone very extreme, and he's always been extreme, but it's to a kind of a scarier level, as he threatened Scott Jennings from CNN, then had to walk that back because the optics were so bad after the Charlie Kirk assassination with what he said. And he said, I never meant it that way. It's always interesting you never meant it that way after people call you out. Well, there's an exclusive at the New York Post if you want to do the research yourself, where Keith Olbermann, this is the headline, Keith Olbermann needs serious help as ex-colleagues warn threat-issuing broadcaster that he is losing it. He needs serious help. Former MSNBC and ESPN personality Olbermann, who now hosts an independent podcast, had to apologize to Jennings this week. Sage Steele, who's a former ESPN anchor that worked with Olbermann, Olbermann has said some very nasty things about her in the past, said, we thought for many years that he was losing it. And I say this honestly and out of concern for another human being. I think anyone who posts such hate, as he often does, and the language he uses, there's something that's not right. He needs some serious help. It's actually heartbreaking to see, especially for those of us who grew up watching him. They go through some of his more, kind of his quirks, that he stays at home a lot, and he's just kind of fueled by this rage. Just something, as if you want to do the research yourself, we're not going to waste precious airtime talking about Keith Olbermann, but as an update from a story that we've had all week. Okay, speaking of Jimmy Kimmel, though, Vice President J.D. Vance said he would love Jimmy Kimmel to apologize to Erica Kirk and the people he slandered now that he's returned to the airwaves. Kimmel tries to say that he told a joke. He didn't tell a joke. He was actually accusing right-wing America, conservative America, of killing Charlie Kirk. We now know that is false. Charlie Kirk was murdered by a left-wing assassin who was radicalized by some of the rhetoric that we see coming from the far left. When you accuse of people who've been holding prayer vigils, who've been praying about Charlie Kirk, you accuse them of killing Charlie Kirk when we know it was a left-wing assassin. You're actually apologizing for his murder. You're encouraging more of that violence to happen. And I've got to say, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, J.D. Vance's handling of the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, but this normalization of left-wing violence, the way he's been speaking out on this has just been remarkable, been fantastic, in my opinion. Something that I don't think we would have seen in the past. And that's very often what happens in the Trump administration, not what you'd expect from maybe, what would you say? I don't want to say, I want to use the right word, but more establishment vice presidents. J.D. Vance, I think, has been hitting out of the park. I think he gave one of the best speeches at the memorial for Charlie Kirk. And I think words like this are important, and getting that message out to what Jimmy Kimmel actually did is very, very important. And I think he makes a clear contrast, and so many people have made this, and I think it is important to see what happens when Charlie Kirk is assassinated, and his supporters, what do? They hold vigils. They hold prayer sessions. They gather together and mourn. There wasn't rioting. So many people have said this. I'm not the first one. I don't want to sound like all those nasty people on Twitter that stole somebody else's idea and then tries to get credit for it. I'm just saying there wasn't rioting. There wasn't looting and destruction. There was thoughts and prayers. I know that's not popular to say, according to some, but there was thoughts and prayers for that moment of grieving, for that time to take in the loss. The vice president continued, if we're going to stop this crazy strain of left-wing violence, we have to be honest about what it is. And the honest truth is that Charlie Kirk was not killed by a MAGA American. He was not killed by a Republican. He was killed by a left-wing radical. Let's be honest about that fact so that we can stop it from happening. Exactly. So that was just something I thought I'd pass along to you, saying that he would love Jimmy Kimmel to apologize. It's clear Jimmy Kimmel will not apologize. Jimmy Kimmel pulled the perfect left-wing tactic, which is to make himself the victim in this and to lecture you for criticizing him or being outraged. So that Jimmy Kimmel is not going to apologize to Erica Kirk. I do have something about Erica Kirk here that I think you're going to find very touching. A couple things here about Charlie Kirk, and then we're going to get into James Comey and the indictment. If you are just joining us and you did not hear the news late yesterday, former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction of justice. Okay, let's take a short break. I see a lot of comments coming in. I appreciate that. Keep them coming in. I'll read them when we come back. Now, I'm not going to read Climate Fact Friday with Bob. We're going to save that to a little bit later. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. Speaking of a kind of an eerie view, with the fog rolling in over historic Market Street, thank you, as always, to Boss Security and Horseheads for bringing us that view. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. As I mentioned, a Climate Fact Friday with Bob coming up shortly. First up, yesterday I made a comment about James being investigated, but I was referring to Letitia James, not James Comey. My fault. My apologies to you. We were talking about Comey at the time, so I got a little confused. So any news about Letitia James? Nope. Nothing new that I have seen, nothing that's crossed my desk. If I hear anything, of course, you'll be the first to know. I'll bring it up on the program. But thank you. And again, I auto-corrected in a way, and as autocorrect normally does, it messed up the conversation. So I appreciate you correcting me. Comment from a different viewer. I wonder if the escalator incident with him going up instead of coming down the escalator is significant. Also, I think it could have been more dramatic if they were on the way down. Trump could have been ahead of the First Lady, or would have been ahead of the First Lady, coming down by going up. The natural reaction of Trump would be to catch the First Lady. I know some have made light of it. I think it does have serious implications about this kind of sabotage of what they were hoping to accomplish. Now, that did not happen. As Trump said, luckily they were holding the handrails, gripping them tightly, because if not, the optics, the potential for injury was there. And again, it was the Times of London that was reporting staffers were joking about it before it happened. Was there somebody there that took it upon themselves to try to make the President of the United States a laughingstock in their mind? I do believe that has to be investigated. Mark writes in, I see how every mass shooting or assassination, they are checking their voting status as they did on the ICE shooting in Texas. He was an independent. Yeah, I know that does become a part of the article. You're right, Mark. I noticed that with the ICE shooter, that's what they said, that he was registered independent, but because of the state he was living in, he could still vote in the primary. So he voted in the 2024 Democrat primary, I believe it was. But yeah, that does become a part of the article. You're right. Okay, I thought this was very touching. I knew you would want to hear it if you had not heard it yet. Tim Allen, you know the actor Tim Allen, been in many Home Improvement, so many wonderful shows, kind of been a staple of television for decades now. He's speaking out about Erica Kirk's speech at the memorial and how it, quote, deeply affected him. He took to X to share how he was personally moved by Kirk's forgiveness of the man who allegedly killed her husband, since forgiveness has not been as easy for him to give. And that's why I think that memorial was so many people, 20 plus million people watching that memorial on a football Sunday, and how, again, the revival feeling, whether it's Erica Kirk's forgiveness, whether it's the religious messages throughout the many hours of the memorial, reaching people who may not normally have an opportunity, or maybe not surround themselves with opportunities to have the message preached to them, or preach is maybe the wrong word in this scenario, but even hearing the message, because it did, and the president said himself that it felt like a old-time revival in there. You had, of course, the music, the amazing speeches, and Erica Kirk's not only most talked about, I think the one that affected us all the most, specifically here, Tim Allen is saying that as well. What he said on X, when Erica Kirk spoke the words on the man who killed her husband, that man, that young man, I forgive him. That moment deeply affected me. I have struggled for over 60 years to forgive the man who killed my dad. I will say those words now as I type. I forgive the man who killed my father. Peace be with you all, he wrote. Wow. The impact that memorial had, that Erica Kirk's speech had, and so many of the other speeches, and the celebration of Charlie Kirk's life, you don't know how many lives have been changed forever. I know they at one point, and I missed this part, but I know during one point they asked who had accepted Jesus Christ into their life during the memorial, and so many people raising their hands. But continuing, if you did not know, Tim Allen's father died in 1964 after a drunk driver's vehicle collided with his vehicle. Allen was 11 at the time of his father's death. He said, I have struggled for over 60 years to forgive the man who killed my dad. I will say those words now as I type. I forgive the man who killed my father. Peace be with you all. What a powerful statement. What a powerful statement from Tim Allen. I just thought that was kind of a follow-up, and we're hearing so much of this, of how much that has affected so many lives. Speaking of two quick things, and then we're going to get to James Comey in the next segment. Speaking of Charlie Kirk, we know that Ilhan Omar said some very vicious things. Representative Omar said some very vicious things about Charlie Kirk. Did you hear what President Trump said about Ilhan Omar yesterday? While answering questions in the Oval Office yesterday, Trump was asked about Representative Jasmine Crockett, whom he called a low IQ person. Then he also mentioned Representative Ilhan Omar. This is what the president said. You know, I meant the head of Somalia. Did you know that? And I suggested that maybe he'd like to take Ilhan Omar back. And he said, I don't want her. He said, I don't want her. So that's an update on Ilhan Omar. Final story on a lighter note. Well, that was light, but on a light note, just to show you, because I just think J.D. Vance is doing a very remarkable job at a very difficult time. And I think he's a very impressive vice president. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But he spent most of his North Carolina speech the other day talking about public safety and backing law enforcement. But there was a viral moment that has come out of this if you haven't seen it. A boy near the press area called out during a question and answer session, and Vance invited him to speak. The boy, who's named Henry, said, I skipped school today. I was wondering if I could get a picture with you. Vance smiled and beckoned Henry up on stage as the room erupted in cheers. Vance said, Henry said, I skipped school. Can I have a picture with you? Well, I guess I got to have some excuse to skip school, so I might as well get a photo with Henry. Henry walked to the stage. They shook hands, and Henry pulled out his phone. Vance leaned in for the selfie as the crowd roared. The vice president gave him a quick pat on the back and returned the microphone. He kept the tone easy for a beat and joked that the next request might be a reporter asking for a photo. He said he was not holding out hopes for questions that were easy and moved back to policy and press questions. But if you haven't seen that video, I found it at it's at Fox News, not New York Post, Fox News. Okay, when we come back, if you are just joining us, if you have not heard, we've been bringing it up all morning, but just on the peripheral, we will talk about it in depth coming up next. Former FBI Director James Comey indicted on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction of justice. Another topic that we have to get to. I hope that we'll have time. is a potential government shutdown. It looks like it's going to happen. Democrats are kind of embracing it. It's sort of red meat, if you will, for the resistance movement inside the Democrat Party. We're going to talk about that at some point. Read your comments. As I said, Climate Fact Friday with Bob coming up a little bit later on. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Just looking at our beautiful view there. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. As far as the Comey indictment goes, I think it absolutely is deserved. But sadly, it doesn't mean much anymore. As the old saying goes, you can indict a ham sandwich. It's lost its real impact for what it is, in my opinion. People just aren't tuned in enough to understand anything and don't care. Thank you very much. Well, what we know about the James Comey indictment, according to CNN, it is 2 felony counts that go hand in hand: obstruction of congressional proceedings when he testified on September 30th, 2020, and making false statements to Congress during that testimony. During the 2020 testimony, Comey doubled down to the Senate that he had not been authorizing leaks to the press when he is FBI director, a top sensitive 2016 investigation. He had previously testified in 2017 that he hadn't authorized leaks. In 2020, Comey said, "I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017. The Justice Department said it indicated on Thursday that Comey knew and in fact had authorized an unnamed contact of his to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation. Now, what we do learn, the charge the grand jury rejected. The prosecutors, however, took one allegation to the grand jury and failed to win their approval, according to the court record. Called a no true bill from the grand jury, a no vote in court against a potential charge the prosecutors saw as a highly unusual occurrence. The grand jury wouldn't have a majority of 12 or more, believing there was probable cause for the charge. In this investigation of Comey, prosecutors had wanted to charge Comey with a false statement to Congress related to Hillary Clinton. So what's next? Comey will need to be arraigned in court, which is currently set for October 9th. As I mentioned, Judge Michael Nachmanoff, a Biden appointee to the federal court, has told Comey to come to court for his arraignment in October, where he will have a chance to plead guilty or not guilty, and the progression to trial kicks off. From there, his attorneys will have many chances to poke holes in the indictment, and both sides will be able to use the court proceedings to air facts and arguments about the case. They'll be able to ask the judge to dismiss the charges, discuss public statements the Justice Department and potentially Donald Trump himself have made about Comey, and review all the evidence before a trial. Again, Comey indicating yesterday that, quote, he is innocent. Trump celebrated yesterday on Twitter with the indictment. Justice in America. One of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to is James Comey, the former corrupt head of the FBI. Today, he was indicted by a grand jury on 2 felony counts for various illegal and unlawful acts. He has been so bad for our country for so long and is now at the beginning of being held responsible for his crimes against our nation. Make America great again. And again, we're not going to go through the exchange every time. You've seen it. He's expected to surrender, though, today. Trump said in an interview with Fox News Digital, what they did was so terrible and so corrupt. He is a very corrupt person. He was absolutely a terrible man for what the country stood for. Comey placed a cloud over the entire nation. And actually, the Russia hoax made it very difficult. It could have caused wars. As I said, Comey playing the victim in the sense of going on his Substack and saying, my family always knew what would happen if I went against Trump. I'm paraphrasing there, but trying to, again, kind of suggest that he is some face of the resistance. Now, we know he made that veiled death threat against the president that was, last I knew, still being investigated. Jasmine Crockett weighed in on it on the program All In, which is on MSNBC. Representative Jasmine Crockett, a rising star in the Democratic Party. Host Chris Hayes says James Comey, the former director of the FBI, a guy who refused to turn the Bureau into Trump's personal plaything, has now been indicted on 2 federal charges. Crockett said, yeah, so here's the thing. I want the American people to know that when you stand up to a bully, you win. Do not back down. Do not bend. You allow them to go and wage their threats. If everybody starts to bend, for sure, what is left of our democracy will be gone. And unfortunately, that is exactly what he wants. And even more sadly is that many of his followers agree with this. And I'm thinking to myself, how is it that you can call yourself American or patriotic when you literally don't understand who we are as Americans? When you literally are okay with throwing out the Constitution? When you're okay with someone just deciding, you know what? This is the end result that I'm seeking, and so figure out how to get there versus doing what you are supposed to do. Listen, even as Democrats, we had our fair share of issues with James Comey, but that's not a reason to prosecute him. And so here's the deal. If he decides that he wants to continue down that path, I think that they're going to continue to lose. I don't see the former FBI director saying that he is going to just go ahead and enter into a plea deal or he's going to take this lying down. I think that this is someone who absolutely will fight this to the end. Amy Klobuchar, senator and failed presidential candidate, was on with Anderson Cooper on CNN. She said, I'm going to get a little out of the weeds here because, of course, we don't know all the details of what was presented. But I look at it this way, Anderson. Trump ordered the prosecution. I'm sure he ordered it behind closed doors, but he also ordered it right there on Truth Social. He fired the U.S. attorney, who is, according to Senator Warner, a staunch conservative who looked at all the evidence, wasn't moving forward with charges, and he fired him, and then installed a White House aide to overrule career prosecutors. And that is what I need to know, because this is simply dangerous. And you see through the through line and can see this through line with this one thing after another. He calls for prosecution of Letitia James. He calls for the prosecution and investigation of the Federal Reserve member Lisa Cook. Goes after Adam Schiff, pardoning insurrectionists who attack police officers. Pressure prosecutors to dismiss a corrupt case against Eric Adams. He is literally weaponizing the Justice Department. A lot of literallys there. Literally is the word of the day from Klobuchar and Jasmine Crockett. But it's got to been a firestorm on both sides. Fierce political reactions, if you will. We already heard what Trump said. I mentioned earlier Pam Bondi saying no one is above the law. The American people deserve justice after years of lies and political interference. Kash Patel amplified that opinion and cast the indictment as part of a broader effort to restore trust in the Bureau, saying today your FBI took another step in its promise of full accountability. For far too long, corrupt leaders weaponized federal law enforcement, damaged once proud institutions, and eroding public trust. Under my leadership, the FBI will confront the problem head on. No one is above the law. U.S. Senator John Cornyn said, while our legal system provides for the presumption of innocence, Comey's accountability for FBI abuses during the first Trump term are long overdue. These charges are serious offenses, especially if committed by the head of our nation's top law enforcement agency, and there must be consequences for any crimes. Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller called it a long-awaited correction to years of corruption and cover-up, while economic advisor Peter Navarro said it proved justice delayed is not justice denied. Now, Senator Tim Kaine, who's been he's been using some very interesting rhetoric lately. We've quoted him a lot. If you don't remember Tim Kaine, he was Hillary Clinton's running mate. He denounced what he called a malicious prosecution, reminding reporters that Trump previously fired a prosecutor who refused to bring frivolous charges. Senator Mark Warner, vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, issued an even sharper rebuke, saying this kind of interference is a dangerous abuse of power. By ousting a respected independent prosecutor and replacing him with a partisan loyalist, Trump is undermining one of the most important U.S. attorney offices in the country and eroding the rule of law itself. Republican Representative Don Bacon, who is not running for re-election, so he's taken this as an opportunity for some reason to go after Trump. He used the term lawfare, saying that lawfare undermines our great country. It didn't start in January, but it didn't end either. The continued escalation will only hurt us all. Comey has his hands dirty in regards to lawfare, but in its totality, this is all bad for us. CNN saying that the indictment shows how Trump has taken a radical turn, even by his own standards, by regularly testing the guardrails of American democracy in his second term. President Trump is now busting through them at a breakneck pace. We're going to read your comments, tell you a little bit about what CNN had to say. Not too much on it, but a lot going on with James Comey, but we need to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We're talking James Comey. We've got a couple of comments from viewers at the top of the next hour. We're going to read Climate Fact Friday with Bob. After that, the second segment of the broadcast, we're going to have our good friends from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy, join us. This is the second group of students. And then after that, we'll be talking with mayoral candidate for the city of Corning, Pam Walker. All right, let's go to viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Hey, good morning, Karen. Good to hear from you. I'm thrilled to hear Comey has been indicted. Hope more are coming. Bring on the accountability. I agree, Karen. Thank you very much. And thank you again for the quote earlier in the week. Comment from a different viewer. Once again, Democrats spin anything Trump related. The bully has been the Democratic Party. The long list of abuse that our president faced would have left most of us running from the bully. Trump stands up to bullies in a New York second. I'm proud of President Trump standing up to the Democrat Party bullies for us all. Thank you very much. Now, again, Aaron Blake at CNN says that the Comey indictment shows how Trump has taken a radical turn even by his own standards. The situation epitomizes how over the next few weeks, we've seen an even more radical version of Trump's already brazen effort to transform the federal government and centralize power with himself. The president has taken rapid and drastic steps to remove any obstacles within the government, to enforce loyalty, to punish his enemies, and to quell the possibility of public dissent that might arise from his moves. Trump is creating a system around him that appears increasingly devoid of friction, with the ultimate goal, it seems, to allow him to get whatever he wants. It's been a stunning period, even by Trump's own often stunning standards. Perhaps the most significant developments are in his suddenly more overt efforts to target his political enemies, with Comey the preeminent example. Trump has accused many of his perceived political opponents of crimes and sometimes weighed in on ongoing legal matters in a way that flouts the norms against politicizing the justice system. Former Trump White House counsel Ty Cobb told, and notice they don't mention that he's a very much anti-Trump. He called it a tragic day, and that the indictment is clear, vindictive, and selective prosecution. The way in which they brought it is problematic for the entire country, said Ty Cobb. This is either the end of the rule of law in America, or it's the tipping point against the authoritarian activities that we've seen from this president and his attorney general. Isn't amazing the rhetoric that they use, even at a time when so many are calling for a toning down of the rhetoric after the assassination of Charlie Kirk? They are just adding, unfortunately, this fuel to the fire. I'm not going to go through anything more on what CNN had to say, because he's saying he's cracking down on people that disagree with him, pointing to people like Jimmy Kimmel and the like. It says here that many of those people have been replaced by MAGA true believers in his second term. The ones who might still stand in the way are increasingly becoming unceremoniously cast aside, along with the political norms and legal constraints that presidents usually respect. And the skids have clearly been greased for an even more revolutionary change in how American government operates. So we see a little bit of that dystopian language. But Jonathan Turley, and I don't have a lot more on James Comey, though we can talk about it if you want. I do have a couple of things I want to get to on the broadcast this morning, so we are going to move along. But when we come back, I want to tell you what Jonathan Turley had to say about it, because I think it's a very interesting perspective. Then we're going to move along. But again, feel free to weigh in at any moment about James Comey indicted on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction of justice. But when we come back, we'll hear from Jonathan Turley. He is a Shapiro Professor of Public Interest Law at George Washington University. That's when we return. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, and I'm sorry I missed a couple of your comments here. We'll get to them we'll do it at the top of the hour. How's that? Top of the hour. Keep those coming in. So we'll start off our broadcast with not only hour number 2. I keep saying that. So strange. I'll get you to your comments at the top of the hour. And we'll read Climate Fact Friday with Bob, who sent in his weekly climate fact. Okay, James Comey says on Thursday, Comey became the first former director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to be indicted for a federal crime. That is likely the only fact upon which you will receive anything close to agreement in this country. For some, the two-count indictment is a long overdue accountability for a man who pushed through the now debunked Russia collusion investigation. For others, it is another abuse on President Trump's revenge tour. There are legitimate concerns about the targeting of a political critic of the president, who publicly complained just days ago that Pam Bondi was not indicting Comey and others. However, Comey is hardly the pristine model of ethical leadership that he described in his book. Putting aside his critical role in the Russian collusion investigation, Comey tossed aside even the pretense of ethics after Trump fired him. The Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, issued a scathing report that found Comey was a leaker and had violated FBI policy in his handling of FBI memos. On his way out of the Bureau, Horowitz wrote, Comey improperly removed FBI materials, including those containing the code name and true identity of a sensitive source. While he did not find that he disclosed the classified information, Horowitz found that Comey took the unauthorized disclosure of sensitive investigative information obtained during the course of FBI employment in order to achieve a personally desired outcome. He further added that Comey set a dangerous example for the over 35,000 current FBI employees and the many thousands of more former FBI employees who have access to or knowledge of non-public information. Comey later admitted that he had asked his friend, Columbia law professor Daniel Rickman, to leak information from the documents to the New York Times. Comey's close associate, former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, stated that Comey instructed him to leak information to the media. Comey denied that repeatedly under oath. James Baker also told investigators that he was under the belief that he was ultimately instructed and authorized to provide information to the Times by then FBI Director James Comey. That sets up a straightforward question. Who is lying? It could also set up a bizarre scene of McCabe or Baker testifying against their friend. Both men appear to despise Trump, so either it could prove an overly hostile witness for the prosecutors. Washington will be glued to any such trial. The one thing more unnerving than the alleged targeting of a political critic in Washington is the prosecution of a leaker. This is a city that floats on a rolling sea of leaks. The Justice Department is notorious for leaks made with lethal effects against targets. Now the former FBI director will stand trial to see if he is a leaker and a liar. There's one individual who's likely to be watching with particular interest and perhaps satisfaction, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Comey is facing 2 counts of making false statements and obstructing a congressional proceeding. The first count is the exact charge that Comey engineered against Flynn. Comey gave a book tour where he thrilled audiences about how he secured a criminal charge against Flynn for making false statements. In one event, an audience cheered as Comey took credit for the controversial charge. He explained that what he did was not exactly proper. It was, he explained, something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe got away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration. I thought it's early enough, let's just send a couple of guys over. The actual agents who interviewed Flynn did not believe that he intentionally lied about a meeting with Russian diplomats, but Comey and his investigators pushed for charges anyway. They drained Flynn of resources, threatened to indict his son, and ultimately secured a plea deal. Now it will be Comey in the dock, facing a charge of making a false statement. He will do so as someone who is admitted to improperly removing FBI material and leaking information to the media. The odds still favor Comey, James Turley says. Jonathan Turley, and will have a jury taken from a generally liberal Democratic jury pool. He's also a sophisticated player. Perhaps that is why he issued a videotape message saying effectively, bring it on and let's go to trial. While an improvement over Comey's bizarre seashell messages, the videotape message may be a bit too confident. Perjury or false statements can be challenging to prove, particularly when vague or nuanced language is used. This is neither vague nor nuanced. Comey repeatedly swore that he never asked anyone at the FBI to leak information. That is either true or it is not. Comey will continue to be vilified and lionized by different parts of the population, yet this is an ignoble moment that he helped bring about. Notably, this indictment comes 50 years after the only Attorney General was convicted of crimes, including false statements and obstruction, and that was John Mitchell after the Watergate scandal. Now the man who bragged about nailing Michael Flynn will face the same false statement charge. The man who celebrated the charging of Donald Trump, including obstruction-related charges, will face his own obstruction charges. Whether karma or lawfare, Comey will now have his day in court. All right, we are out of time, running late. We're going to move along when we return. Climate Fact Friday with Bob after this. Welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning in the heart of the Gaffer District. Speaking of Corning, we'll be talking with Corning's sister cities students. Our sister city is San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy. Students from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy will be joining us in the next segment. After that, we'll be talking with Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker. So we got a busy hour. So let's get to all the viewer comments. At the end of these viewer comments, we're going to have Climate Fact Friday with Bob. Here we go. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. It's just not right that Comey is taking the spotlight from Kimmel. America can't handle 2 mistreated liberals at the same time. You're right. 2 victims. It's not fair for either of them. They should both have the spotlight on them and the sun shining on them at all times. I appreciate your concern, and I think we all feel the same concern. Comment from a different viewer calling in saying, I wish Hillary would give it up. I'm sick of listening to her. I'm one of her deplorable Walmart shoppers, but she's the one that broke the law, Russia, 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 and then destroyed all the evidence. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. From one deplorable to another, I suppose. Mark writes in, Comey deserves to be prosecuted, and as far as Trump going after those who did him wrong, I don't blame him. I do the same, and I believe most people would. Yeah, I wish there was as much talk about lawfare when it was actually happening to Trump as there is now. So you raise a good point, and here we are. It's Friday, so that can mean only one thing. And we start with this. Good morning to all from Climate Fact Friday. Bob, well, we all wish you a good morning as well. Here we go. What does a 100-year flood really mean? It means there's a 1% chance of it happening in a given year. The U.S. has 19,000 watersheds. This works out to be around 109 so-called 100-year. Let me do this again. Sorry. This works out to be around 109 so-called 100-year floods each year. This is not climate chaos. This is science and simple math. 1996 to 2025, these events, as expected, have fluctuated wildly. There has been no upward trend, despite the fact CO2 has been rising. The mainstream media over-dramatizes every little flooding event. This makes it seem like we are doomed in a global crisis. This is not science, only storytelling, to again spread fear to control the population. Even the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, show no upward trend in flooding. Next week, geoengineering. Oh, next week's on geoengineering. Oh, good. Thank you. Have a great weekend and be safe out there. Well, thank you, as always. Climate Fact Friday, Bob. We appreciate your input to the program. On top of James Comey, who has been indicted on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction of justice, senior DOJ leaders are advocating for charging John Bolton this week as well. Currently, the prosecutors think they could bring a stronger case by the end of the year against Bolton over the mishandling of national security documents rather than pushing for a charge at this time. So we will keep you updated on that. As I always mention, Dennis Miller used to call John Bolton the nuclear walrus. We've learned a few things. I'm just going to go through this quickly about the anti-ICE shooter. According to a report by the New York Post, he was a, quote, lazy stoner who relocated to Washington to pick pot. His ex-boss says he was all about the weed. That is an exact quote. Quote, he was all about the weed. He wanted to be part of the scene. He lived in his car while he helped. He was just a young kid. When the job was over, he drove back to Texas. He would come to work. He didn't say a whole lot. He wasn't an exceptional worker by any stretch. We never talked about politics or any kind of that kind of stuff. Nobody did. John was part of a 15-person crew, taking leaves off and listening to music during the harvest. Kash Patel said a note left by the Dallas, they're calling him Dallas Sniper in this piece, indicated he hoped his attack would give ICE agents real terror. One of the handwritten notes recovered read, hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with armor-piercing rounds on that roof? Further accumulated evidence to this point indicates a high degree of pre-attack planning. We also learn that he did multiple searches on his computer for Charlie Kirk shot video, watching the video of Charlie Kirk's assassination. FBI headquarters, according to Kash Patel, have been working 24/7 to seize devices, exploit data, and process writing obtained on location and in subject's person, residence, bedroom. He then provided updates on what the agency found, including their discovery that the alleged sniper conducted multiple searches of ballistics and the Charlie Kirk shot video between 9/23 and 9/24. Between 8/19 and 8/24, the alleged sniper searched apps that track the presence of ICE agents. We know there's been a lot of criticism of those apps, criticism of news reporters, warning residents of ICE raids. The anti-ICE gunman also spent, get this, 17,500 hours playing violent video games, including right before the shooting. Now, I know a lot of people, and this is not a popular statement, but a lot of people have called for at least the conversation around these violent video games. There was that great piece, and we didn't get a chance to read all of it, but I thought the headline was significant enough where it was, life is not a video game. These shooters, whether it's Charlie Kirk's assassin, whether it's this Joshua John, they are treating life like it's a video game where the loss of human life, you can just hit reset and it starts all over again. But he played largely first-person shooter games aimed at killing enemies. Since the account was opened back in September of 2011, he logged 729 days worth of game playing. More than 2 years. If you put it together, streamed it together, 2 years of constant violent video game playing. That amounts to nearly 15% of his entire life, including sleeping hours, on the video game platform over the course of a decade and a half. Wow. I think a conversation has to be had. What that conversation looks like, I have no guarantees, but the conversation has to be had about violent video games. I think that is an important step. Now, not letting that stop her, Representative Pramila Jayapal called ICE a terrorist force, doubling down on her rhetoric even after this shooting. She called ICE a terrorist force in a fundraising email, and talking to CNN, she accused ICE agents of kidnapping, among other crimes. Senator Chris Murphy said criticizing the deeply inhumane way that ICE is rounding up people was not an indictment to violence. He said, I want to ask you about the shooting. I don't want to go through the question. Murphy said, listen, it should not matter whether the radicalization comes from the right or the left or, some sort of non-ideological, deep, dark recesses of the internet. This president, this vice president had a chance now, since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, to bring the country together, to try to stamp out all sorts of violence, including political violence. And they refused to do that. What they're trying to do is exploit these murders and these shootings in order to silence only dissent and political opposition on the left. No criticizing the way that ICE is rounding up people in this country in a deeply inhumane and immoral way. It's not an incitement to violence. There's a moment where you cross the line, but what they are trying to do is to destroy the ability for people who oppose their policies to legitimately engage in political debate, and we're not going to let them do that. So basically saying we're going to continue to push the rhetoric. There is we don't have time for it. Well, we have a couple other things on this. I know we've got to talk about Trump signaling that there's going to be mass firings if there's a government shutdown. The Democrats are doubling, tripling down, saying there's most likely going to be a government shutdown. Many people, including Mike Lawler, saying that it shows their hypocrisy. Now, Mike Lawler was one time thought he would be running for governor, but decided not to here in New York, as it looks like at least Stefanik may. So anyway, kind of a little tangent there. But there's a few things here that we're going to get to. But our guests are coming up. I'm so excited about this. If you are just joining us, if you are just waking up, James Comey has been indicted on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction of justice. Please send your comments in on that. Send your comments in on anything we've discussed this morning. But coming up next, I'm excited. It's our good friends from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy. They're going to be joining us. This is part 2. This is a different group of students. We're going to find out how their trip has been going so far. And then after that, we're going to be talking to Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker. So very busy show this morning, but that does not mean that you stop or pause your comments coming in because I'll read them as soon as we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio are more guests from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being on the program.
Yeah.
Is it fun so far? It's fun.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Let's have you introduce yourself.
I'm Nicholas.
I'm Eva.
Tatiana.
I'm Daniele.
Well, thank you so much for being on the program. How was the trip getting here?
It was a bit difficult because like we stopped in France, in Paris, and we got a flight to go to Detroit, but we lost it.
Oh.
And so we had to go to, where was it?
Atlanta.
To Atlanta. And then we got to Rochester and, well, yeah, it lasted more than it should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, 26 hours.
Really?
It was a long trip.
And so you got here Thursday. You probably slept, right? Because
Yeah.
you were tired.
Yeah.
And then Friday they had the big welcome when
Yeah,
you showed up.
uh-huh.
How was that?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
They had like drums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think when you saw the school?
It's
Oh.
impressive.
Yeah, it's really big.
Really different from ours.
Yeah.
Very different. We talked to the other group. So you're a different school than the other group we talked to, correct?
Yeah.
So what school do you go to?
It's a technical school. We specify on just some subjects.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been here since Friday. How's the trip been so far?
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
It's really fun.
Have you been making friends?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. The last group that we spoke to, they've really enjoyed their time with their host family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
did
we
too.
do.
And one thing they explained to me after our interview, somebody from your host family is going to come visit you next time.
In February.
Oh, so good thing you like your host family.
Yeah.
So what has been the highlight for each of you so far at your time in our area? You want to start?
Yep. When we went to the truck, to the racetrack.
Oh, to the racetrack, Watkins
Yeah.
Glen?
Yeah, to
Oh,
walk
yeah.
to Watkins Glen. Yep. It was really fun.
Did they race around the track?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, I hopped on a Corvette. So
really?
yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, for me too, because I love cars.
Oh, yeah.
So
Perfect.
it was like my dream.
Oh, isn't that neat?
Yeah.
So next year you can watch the NASCAR race at Watkins
Yeah.
Glen and know that you were there.
Yeah.
Isn't that neat? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like the racing trip too, and also in the weekend, me, my host friend, and other two girls went to Horseheads.
Oh, yeah.
We went shopping and we had dinner, so I liked the day.
Yeah. Did you buy a lot of souvenirs, like a lot of things to
Yeah.
bring home? Yeah.
Mhm, yeah.
How do you bring them home? I'll get to you. Don't worry. How do you bring them home? Do you mail them, or can you pack them on?
Yeah,
we can pack
we
them.
were packing out.
Because I would assume you buy a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I
Yeah.
don't even know if they are gonna fit it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm concerned. That's why I wondered if you mailed it. What was your favorite part?
Yeah, for me it was also the racetrack.
The racetrack.
I really liked the trip that we did yesterday in the Seneca Lake.
Oh, oh yeah.
It was
Seneca.
nice.
It's
it was,
beautiful.
Early in the morning, so it was all foggy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of suggestive. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. I got a question. How many pictures do you think you've each taken?
I don't know.
If you had to guess.
I mean,
More than
I took
20.
picture because of my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there wouldn't be that many.
No, really? Okay. So what's the schedule look like from here? When do you leave?
On Sunday.
Oh, Sunday. So it's kind of wrapping up
Yep.
quick. Did it go really quick?
Yeah.
What's the schedule look like from here till Sunday?
So tomorrow we have Hoko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
First the
homecoming.
pep rally.
Oh, homecoming.
And the
Yeah,
homecoming.
and then homecoming.
Yeah.
On Saturday
We gotta go to the Niagara
The
Falls.
Niagara-
Ah, you gotta
Falls.
Falls.
Oh, yeah.
and on Sunday we leave.
Okay. So you have homecoming. Are you excited for that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
excited.
Did you, like, this is a weird question, but do you think homecoming dance, did you bring clothes with you or did you buy them here?
No,
No, we brought clothes.
Would you say, what were you looking forward to the most? I want to put words in your mouth. What were you looking forward to the most on the trip when you were thinking about it?
Maybe Niagara Falls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or the homecoming too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's
we
what I
don't
want.
have
We don't have that
the
type of.
boy.
Because you're going to watch a football game too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to live in a week the American high school experience.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way?
Yeah.
Was it what you pictured when you were back home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
It's
there?
like the film.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
just like on a movie.
Yeah.
It's like on a movie. Yeah.
What are you? So are you guys looking? You're looking forward to Niagara Falls. Are you looking forward to the rest of the trip? Like homecomings? Would you say that's the top of it?
Yeah.
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 So I wanted to also ask you, when you thought about the American experience, like I said at high school and all that, is this what you pictured America like?
Yeah, pretty
I
much.
pretty much imagine like that.
Yeah. What did our last group? Some people went to New York City and saw some other things. What were some of the other highlights from your trip so far?
In the countryside.
The
Yeah.
countryside.
Yeah, the countryside.
Okay. Okay. I've got so many questions. You guys are so excited that I'm excited for you for homecoming. I guess are you going to stay in touch with your host families outside of them visiting, but your host families, and I'm sure you're making friends over at the high school too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think you'll stay in touch with all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
hope
think so.
Would you come back? Would you tell your friends to come back?
Yeah.
Or to come here?
Yeah.
How different is it here than when you look at back home?
Everything is
Entirely
bigger
different.
here.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah.
Everything's bigger.
Yeah,
That was the same answer that the other group gave. It's that much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you miss that we don't have here?
Not really.
No.
No. It's pretty
Maybe
similar.
food.
The food.
Yeah.
Yeah, the food.
Oh, yeah. Have you had
Good food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like fast foods and something like that, but I really like Italian food. So
Sure. Sure.
Because it's healthier.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's way
yeah,
he-
yeah.
I mean, it's good here, but our food is healthier. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that I would agree with that. I haven't even had your food, so but I would agree.
Probably that's why.
Yeah.
That's because we only went to fast food and
Oh.
we ate only
Yeah.
Yeah. So
junk food. So
you've only pretty much had junk food.
I mean, outside
can say so.
outside of our home, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Inside, no, my host family prepared a lot of
Yeah.
meals and.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
So what kind of special things have you done with your host families? Have you had a lot of time to spend with them?
not
Not
much.
not really.
The weekend.
Yeah,
Oh.
just the weekend.
Okay. So before we go, what would you say, other than where you visited, what has been the most special experience about all of this?
Maybe seeing for the first time Seneca Lake.
Oh, yeah.
I think the first day, because like the school
Yeah.
is so big. And, yeah.
And everybody was so nice when you come there with the signs.
Yeah.
And isn't it? It's such a special experience.
Yeah.
Do you-
I like the football game because we don't have that, so it's a really new experience for us.
And for me, it was everything.
just everything. That's a good answer. What was it like seeing your first football game?
I mean, I didn't know the rules, so I was just I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and it's pretty violent.
Yeah, but I like the
Right.
vibe. All the students hyping up the players.
Yeah, and then you got the cheerleaders, you've got the band
Yeah,
playing, and
I like
all the
that.
fans are in the crowd. Well, that's fun. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show. Two things. First, I got to show you this. I forgot to show the other group, and I saved this for look. Oh, see, they sent it. I should show myself on camera. It's my I Love San Giovanni Valdarno bag that I use for everything.
Okay.
I don't.
Really?
No, I don't really. I don't really. But I keep it right there so I can show you. But and before we go, in Italian, would you like to say something to people back home?
Vi voglio bene.
Ciao.
So,
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show. Safe travels, have fun, and good luck at homecoming.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
All right.
you.
We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much to our friends from San Giovanni Valdarno, Italy, for being with us this morning on the broadcast. Coming up in a little bit, how appropriate, as we broadcast live from Corning, and we hear from our Corning sister cities. We're going to be talking with the mayoral candidate for Corning, Pam Walker, in just a moment. A couple quick things to wrap up our discussion, and I want to not wrap up our discussion, keep the discussion going, but I want to get to some viewer comments. First up, using video games to access, like any other mind-altering stimulus, like watching violence in movies or on TV to access, should be considered to be as powerful as drugs. Look what effects the media has on causing social dysfunction that can lead to killing and the burning of cities. I wasn't surprised about the assassin playing violent video games. Comment from Ken. Ken writes in, just being realistic. Flynn's life was ruined because he was a Trump Republican. But Comey has been a good ally for the Democrats. So what you want about say what you want about the Democrats. They stick together to damage the other side, and they stick together to protect their loyalists. Comey will not serve a day of time for his lies. This will never change until Republicans decide that they need to fight fire with fire. Division in the Republican Party hurts them and helps the Democrats. Thank you very much, Ken. Sorry, I didn't read it as thoroughly as normal. I had someone trying to talk to me through the window there for a moment. David Marcus writes, why Antifa, and there's been a few pieces like this, why Antifa is so much more dangerous than old school leftist terrorists. And he said the United States is experiencing a level of left-wing political violence not seen since the early 1970s, with one key and chilling difference. Today, a radicalized violent extremist can be anywhere and everywhere. He wraps up by saying we are nowhere near close to the level of political violence that peaked in the 70s, when bombings felt like a weekly occurrence. But we are trending in that direction. And until Democrats are willing to take this threat seriously, it'll be very hard for the Trump administration to stop what is coming. And Douglas Murray kind of echoes that point, saying, do words have any effect? Those of us who write for a living like to think so. We hope that we can use words to persuade, enlighten, and perhaps even entertain. But if words do have an effect, then why are so many people in positions of power so incredibly careless with the words that they use? In recent weeks, here are just a few of the words that have been used to describe ICE officers: Gestapo, neo-Nazis, secret police. And these words are not being used by some deranged online hysteric typing from their basement. They are used by, in order, Governor Tim Walz, Mayor of Boston Michelle Wu, and Governor Gavin Newsom. The first of those people could have been the vice president had the election last November gone the other way. The last of them, the governor of California, clearly harbors an ambition to be a future president. You would have thought that the people in such prominent positions would have thought twice before sticking the worst possible labels onto federal employees. After all, isn't it meant to be that if you're a Nazi, that they, and so many people have said this, that you attack a Nazi, that you kill a Nazi? And that's the kind of rhetoric that has led to this violence. And I can't go through all of this. And again, it's by Douglas Murray. But he said, so we have attacks on politicians, journalists, activists, ICE agents, and more. And still they're all Hitler crowd. They're going to keep on going with that kind of rhetoric. Fine. We should notice them and hold them accountable at the ballot box. Perhaps also stressing the growing amount of blood that they are getting on their hands. That's Douglas Murray. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about the potential for a government shutdown. It looks as if that's where we are headed. We are going to talk about that and kind of the there's kind of a thread here that we've been talking about. We discussed the potential government shutdown, and then that leads to a discussion on so many people distancing themselves from Chuck Schumer. He is not a very popular guy right now. We'll see how he handles the potential for a government shutdown. We know that the meeting between Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Trump was canceled earlier in the week. Also, I don't think we'll have time to get to this, but there's a few things here about Kamala Harris. She is on her book tour, and she's being slammed by some in her own party. We may get a chance to talk about that, but keep your great comments coming in. Let's keep the discussions going. Oh, how about this? I love this one. This comment, ciao to the lovely students visiting our area. Their English is excellent, and they did a great job on the show. We hope you enjoy the rest of your visit. I don't know how to say that. Sorry. Agrio? I hope you didn't make me say something I'm not supposed to say. But yes, they did a great job. They both groups, the one on Tuesday and the group today, fantastic job. I had a great conversation with them, not just on the air, but off the air as well. Very impressed, always impressed with the students from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy. All right, let's take our break. When we come back, Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker, after this quick commercial break. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hagum, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Speaking of Corning, it's candidate for mayor of Corning. Pam, thanks so much for being back on the program.
It's great to be here, Frank. Thanks
Boy,
for having
time
me.
flies.
Yeah.
It was what, beginning of summer, was it? We talked?
Yeah, late spring maybe
Yeah.
even. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So how's the campaign been going so far?
It's been a busy season. I have been out walking around, ringing doorbells, and introducing myself to people.
How do you like it?
I'm really enjoying that. It's great to talk one-on-one with folks and hear what's on their minds. And, I feel like I owe it to people, since I don't have opposition, to give them a chance to ask me questions and to share what their concerns might
Have
be.
people been pretty receptive? I mean, I ask that not because of you or anybody specific. I'm amazed when you're getting petitions signed. People don't answer the doors like they used to.
Yeah. And there's certainly a fair amount of that
Yeah.
too when you're just out canvassing. But the people that I've talked to have been really warm, really friendly, really engaged and about the city of Corning and happy with things.
And I do think it's interesting because people have different concerns. So what you hear from one neighbor may be completely different from the other neighbor,
Yeah,
and maybe
yeah.
a topic you never even realized was on someone's list, right?
Well, yep, but there are definitely things that unite us all. And I think
I was going to ask.
I think potholes is probably at the
Number
top
one.
of the list. Street I and
Yeah.
I have to put in kudos to Bill Boland and Mark Reichman, because I think together they really put together a strong program of repaving and putting money aside to make sure that we take care of our streets
Yes.
day to day.
Well, and it is a tough one, but it is talk about the most local of politics.
Sure.
The
sure.
pothole in front of my house doesn't get much more local.
That's
than
right.
that. It's all local, right?
That's right.
Have
That's right.
have you anything other than potholes that have been kind of a common thread when you talk to people?
Yeah, sort of top of mind, I think everybody can point to a vacant building that they have concerns about.
Sure.
And they span the range of residential buildings within neighborhoods, commercial buildings, office buildings. We have a gateway right now that's sitting vacant right now that Rite Aid is
Yeah.
no longer in business.
I know it.
And so I think we're all anxious to see some more commercial development and infill development happening to correct those things.
So taking kind of a step back, and you're knocking on doors, you're talking to people, you're going to events, but if someone hasn't had the opportunity to meet you yet, what should they know about you? Maybe tell us a little bit about your background and why you decided to run.
Sure. Well, most immediately, I have been chairing the committee to update the city's comprehensive
Well, that'll come
plan.
up in a little bit.
Okay,
Don't beat me to the
yes.
punch yet.
All right, we'll save that for later. I'll go
Okay.
back a little bit farther. When I moved to Corning, I had been a city planner. I worked in the city of Phoenix, and I caution people not to blame me for what's happened in Phoenix. I worked in a small city in Southern California and in Brevard County. And so I came to Corning, and city planning was not as forward a thing as it was in those really high growth, high development areas.
Sure.
But when I retired from teaching, I did teach for about 15 years at the Alternative School for Math and Science. When I retired from that, the opportunity presented itself to get involved in planning again. Bill Boland invited me to be on the Planning Commission, and I've done that now for about 5 years. And I just really like being able to give something back to the city this way.
And what was it that pushed you over the edge to decide that you're going to take that step and get the signatures and knock on the doors?
Pushed over the
Yeah,
edge. I like the
that's
way
the way
you
to do
put
it,
that,
yeah.
It was a long process of discernment for me, actually. I had to think about it for quite a while. It's not a position I ever saw myself taking or trying to take. But after a lot of conversations with Bill and with others, my family included, it seemed like it was a way that I could continue to work on the issues that have concerned me. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Well, since you're kind of new to that side of things, what has been the biggest surprises?
Big surprises. Yeah. Wow. I guess. Well, I'll start with something fairly immediate. I went out of town for a family wedding one weekend and came back, and there was a broken water main and two new Superfund
you were
sites
gone?
declared.
I
was gone. And I
That's
thought,
wonderful.
There's no causation there, I'm sure, but still.
How was the wedding?
The wedding was lovely.
Okay, good.
Yes, thanks. But it was, it's surprising to me how fast the environment can change around you. And I think we all see a situation now where maybe grant funds aren't flowing as freely as they once were.
Yeah.
That's certainly been a big change since I first decided to pursue this
Sure,
role.
that's true, yeah.
And so it makes me wonder kind of what we might be faced with when I eventually do take office.
Well, it's also nice to plan now so you're prepared, because things have changed since you first started getting signatures.
Sure.
That's the nature of it, right?
Nothing constant except change. I
Right,
guess,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
What do you think your priorities will be when you're elected in November?
Yeah. I feel really strongly about Corning's neighborhoods. It's one of the things that attracted me to live in the city in the first place, and I've talked to others who feel the same way. We have a really nice quality of life here. We have beautiful street trees. We have a great walkable city. I'd like to be able to preserve that for everyone. I think we also recognize that one of the reasons we have that is we have a really strong economic driver in Corning Incorporated.
Of course.
And so making sure that Corning continues to have a strong role in the city and leveraging Corning's presence in order to bring in other businesses and grow the economy. Those are really important things for the city.
Well, it was great when DiNapoli came to town and you had the report. Well, I don't know what a progress report. I don't even know what you'd call it, but it was very favorable to where Corning stands right now. But as you mentioned, so much has changed even from them, whether it's grants, but it's also the constant, kind of to your point, the presence of Corning Inc. We've got to embrace that just as much as we embrace anything else, I think.
Sure. And by the way, kudos to our city manager, Mark Reichman, for being a really strong fiscal manager of the city's finances.
Yeah, you get nervous when you hear DiNapoli's in town, right? And this was a good thing. This was a wonderful thing. I was glad I could attend. That was a while ago. But let's get to the comprehensive plan, because I know people have questions. How long has this been going on?
It's been almost 2 years, maybe even a little bit more. I think we started in June. So yeah. We plan to wrap up by December with a presentation to the City Council for their consideration and adoption. But backing up from that, there'll be a draft that will go to the steering committee in probably about the third week of October.
Okay.
Don't have a date certain yet, but that's an opportunity for the public to be able to see the full draft as well. And I hope people will reflect on it and share their comments on that too.
Well, that's what's been wonderful about it, because it has involved the public really from the beginning. And I've heard so many people talk about it, which isn't really common for a comprehensive plan.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to hear
and
that.
I know that whether it was Bill on or you, people were just wondering where it's at. And I know that you had so many of the kind of the public forums. And I just think that helps, because it gets people, I don't know, when you feel like you're part of something, it makes it a lot better, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that really speaks to what democracy is at the local level.
Yeah.
It's citizens being able to be involved in their government.
Yeah. And when did you say it wraps up ish?
We're hoping to have a plan approved in December.
I bet your Bill is too.
Yeah, I think that would be a great feather in his cap.
Yes, I would agree.
Round things out.
And I want to talk. We've covered a lot already, and we're almost running out of time. But looking at your website, you have a great website.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So can people find out more there? Can they volunteer, help you? How's that work?
The website is kind of static, but I also have a Facebook page.
Oh, okay.
It's Pam Walker for Mayor, and people can put messages on there, and I'll be sharing some of the things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'd welcome people's support and people's sharing their concerns. I really want to hear what the people of Corning have to say.
Well, I know we have a lot of people that watch this program that have run for elected office. They're wondering, how do you not get an opponent? How do you make that work?
I know, right?
Did you buy a lotto ticket after? My goodness.
I did not. It's it's kind of a honeymoon phase,
Yeah,
I guess.
because normally I'd say, what do you say to voters? But at this point, just vote, right?
You know what I do say to them? I knock on their door and I say, hi, I'm Pam Walker. I'm a candidate for mayor. I'm the only one, so you're stuck with me.
You're stuck with me, sorry.
Yes.
So you might as well have a conversation with me, right?
Yeah.
And right before you came on the program, I love this. I look forward to it every year. The San Giovanni Valdarno Sister Cities kids came in. That is such a nice program that Corning has.
Oh, really terrific. What a group of engaged young people.
I know.
I just got to see an exercise with Bill Boland leading them through a fake city council meeting, mock city council meeting.
Yeah, and they have so much fun with that. Bill tells me every year, because there's always kind of one fly in the ointment. Someone that's, where are we going to get the money? Where are we going to do it? They're very good at being politicians, right?
We saw a lot of fiscal conservatism in the group this
Isn't
time
that funny?
around. Yes.
They were a great week. So I spoke to, I don't think all the group, I don't know how many kids there were total, but 2 groups, because I know they're in 2 schools. They were very talkative, where in years past you almost had to kind of pull it out of them. They love the area. They were telling us it seems like the trend is Watkins Glen might be their favorite, the racetrack.
Okay.
And so that might be something to keep in mind. But we're so glad that is a tradition that continues here. And I know next year you'll have to be the one doing all the presentations.
Yeah.
You excited for
I'm
the stuff like that?
looking forward to it. Talking with young people is something I've got a lot of background in, so I think that'll be great.
Do you think, because that's new for a lot of people when you get into politics, the idea of going to the ribbon cuttings or giving how do you think that Are you ready for that? Is that something from your background? How can anybody be ready for that, right?
I'll take it as it comes.
Yeah.
A lot of the events that Bill cuts ribbons at and represents the city and are things that I've gone to over the years.
Sure.
So I kind of know what they're like. But the idea of standing up there and being front and center is very new. So
practice your whereases and wherefores or whatever.
I guess so.
Well, Pam, thanks so much for being on the program. Again, go to your website to find out more, right?
Yes.
And the Facebook. Let's do this again soon, just to remind people, because they still have to vote for you. You need at least one.
I do. Yes, please come out and vote.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street Corning. We want to thank our guest, Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker, for being on the program this morning. We appreciate the time to join us. Also, our good friends from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy, that were in right before her. Let's go to some viewer comments. Oh, thank you for teaching me how to say it. I'm still probably going to butcher it. Agario, which means best wishes and cheers. Thank you very much. Comment from a viewer. Oh, this is from Rick. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, Rick. Let me add that wave there. Time to break out the polygraph. Trump Nokia says he's not involved in making the decision whether to indict Comey or not, other than telling Bondi she won't have a job if she doesn't. He's not involved. He also said he thought Comey is a sick person. You know who I think is sick? Donald Trump. Oh boy, that indictment. Oh boy, they indicted Comey. Spend some time stopping wars, lowering costs for Americans, and get off your vengeance tour, Trump. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you, Rick. Comment from a different viewer. Democracy shouldn't be one-sided. Sorry, it would be nice if we had a Republican who would have jumped in. When you're running unopposed, you pretty much get free reign, don't you? Well, yeah, you do get free reign, but I mean, that's not in any way, shape, or form Pam Walker's fault. That's the fault of no one, I guess, stepping up and running against her on the Republican ticket or independent ticket or whatever ticket, or even a primary. It's not any indication. She did make that decision to jump in, and no one else did. So it worked out in her favor, that's for sure. As it has been reported all morning long on this program, we've had the conversation. Former FBI Director James Comey indicted on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction of justice. If you were not aware, I wanted to pass that along to you. Okay, the White House Trump sent out a memo signaling that the layoffs would accelerate, the firings would accelerate if there is a shutdown, but that is not causing Democrats to back down, according to CNN. A memo from the White House Budget Office telling federal agencies to prepare plans for mass firings should the government shut down signaled a dramatic escalation and a funding stare down, with fewer potential off-ramps as next week's deadline nears. But it provides the first glimpse of the Trump administration's internal operational planning that up to Wednesday night had been shrouded in a level of secrecy that broke from the approach of past administrations of both parties. Those efforts center on the agency contingency plan that makes up the bespoke guidance documents for the federal workforce in the event of a funding lapse, which have long been posted publicly and updated every few years. The most recent agency plans submitted during the Biden administration were pulled offline earlier this year with no explanation. Officials across several agencies said they'd been largely in the dark about the White House plans, and many were scrambling to deliver the requested information detailed in the OMB memo. Gets a little in the weeds there, but this is not causing the Democrats to, change their conversation, change their mind. Senator Susan Collins of Maine, who is a Republican, who leads the Senate spending panel, said that federal employees should not be treated as pawns in the funding fight. And among Republican strategists who believe the GOP support for a clean funding extension gave them the upper hand in the standoff, there's growing anxiety over the prospect that the White House's rhetoric and layoff threats could weaken that advantage. I do think this is interesting because this has been historically, just if you haven't always followed government shutdowns, it normally happens that Republicans start off strong, and then when the media starts to blame the shutdown on them or threatens to blame the shutdown on them, many cave. This has just historically been the truth. They get scared of the media coverage, even though the media is never going to be friendly to them, and no matter what they do, even when they do decide to concede and give in every demand of the Democrats, they still receive criticism for bringing it that close and these type of things. GOP strategist Doug Hayes said Trump is going to exert whatever power he can. He's going to exact whichever pain he can. That could backfire, and there's certainly the risk of especially if we start seeing firings in areas that we haven't seen before that directly impact voters' lives. So that was a Republican strategist already signaling the go-ahead to the Republicans that normally cave in matters like this, that it's okay. You're going to be criticized by the media. The media does not seem to be criticizing as much. There's a little bit of, how do I want to explain it? A little bit of fog right now, because really the Democrats are, with all their rhetoric about no government shutdowns, are coming off looking hypocritical in this. So the media is having a little bit of trouble with that, because now the Democrats are doubling down, even CNN admitting that, while senior aides in both parties across Washington said they were unsurprised by that memo. The threat of mass firing underscores the high stakes for Democrats, as many in the party acknowledge a shutdown is likely inevitable at this point. The concerns are particularly acute for lawmakers representing seats with large number of federal workers, like Maryland or Virginia. Though, at least for now, it's not enough to force Democrats to back off their demands. Instead, for multiple Democrats, the memo has only hardened their party's resolve not to yield to the GOP's funding plan. Now, it's a clean spending bill. This is going to be the hard part to sell for them. Hakeem Jeffrey saying we will not be intimidated by Russ Vought, who is completely and totally out of control. The OMB has been illegally shutting down parts of the government throughout this entire year. And the notion that Democrats are going to be intimidated by this guy when all he has done is send a message to voters in Virginia and across the country that Republicans are determined to hurt the American people. So that is going to be kind of their talking point. Democrats said they do not believe that voters, even fired federal workers themselves, would listen to Trump when he blamed Democrats instead of his own budget office for the layoffs. One senior aide to a moderate House Democrat told CNN, if Trump's master plan is that federal workers will be on Republican side, they're blanking morons. I guess it's all about federal employees. But, the media will play up the person that's struggling in this. They'll find the person that says they can't, put food on their table, whatever, during the shutdown. This has all been done before. Nothing new under the sun. But Speaker Johnson has flipped the script on this, releasing a memo earlier this week highlighting past comments by Senate Democrats warning of the pitfalls of a government shutdown. House Republicans acted responsibly last week to keep the government open with a clean, short-term continuing resolution. Senate Democrats, who used to warn that shutdowns would hurt seniors, veterans, and working families, are now threatening to force one, meaning a government shutdown, unless Congress repeals the working families tax cut, restores taxpayer-funded health care for illegal aliens, and sends $500 million to left-wing news outlets, among other partisan spending demands. Now, in the past, not under Trump, but in the past, Republicans would very often give in to every demand for Democrats because they don't want the optics of a government shutdown. This year, they seem to be a little more resolved. The rest of the memo features a list of Democrat comments, beginning with then Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer back in 2024, saying if the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most. Johnson's memo also referenced comments by Senator Bernie Sanders from 2018, saying the truth is that shutting down the government is a serious and dangerous action that we must do everything possible to prevent. Shutting down the government would impact tens of millions of our fellow Americans who would be unable to access government services. Senate Democrats, then in the minority, agreed to the GOP short-term funding bill in exchange for public assurances for a vote on immigration legislation. So again, flipping the script, changing the narrative, and I think that's very important to do because in the past we've always caved to the media's narrative as Republicans. And he goes through and lists some other past comments. But the New York Post editorial, oh my goodness. You know what? We're going to read this, two other things, and get your last minute comments in. So give us your last minute comments so we can wrap up today's edition. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Let's go to some viewer comments. Mark writes in some good news. Ollie's is moving into the Big Lots building in Painted Post. Yeah, I saw the commercial on, I think it was on today's program, right? That we saw the commercial for Ollie's. That is great news for our whole area and specifically the people of Irwin and Painted Post. So yes, looking forward to that. Comment from a different viewer. What a shocker. I get the idea that Rick doesn't care for my president. So subtle. Thank you very much. Comment from Ken. I just want to thank Rick for acknowledging that President Trump is reducing spending and stopping wars, something that the Democrats haven't been able to do or even tried. We should also remember Trump is a master of multitasking. Thank you, Ken. Comment from a different viewer. Where is it here? James Comey's son-in-law, Troy Edwards, resigned from his position as a senior national security prosecutor shortly after the former FBI director was indicated. I'm a bit shocked, to be honest. Second quarter GDP has been revised higher once again to 3.8%, reflecting much stronger than expected consumer spending, rising income, and lower imports. Thank you very much. And finally, a comment from a completely different viewer. Have a great weekend. Looking forward to Monday. Well, thank you. You have a great weekend, too. I'm looking forward to Monday as well. The New York Post editorial board says that Schumer and Jeffries' shutdown antics are just red meat for their radical base, for that face of the resistance, saying in the latest bit of Democratic Party government shutdown theater, Senator Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, Representative Jeffries, are huffing and puffing over Team Trump's talk of mass federal firings if Senate Democrats use the filibuster to block Republicans' 2-month stopgap bill. In reality, the Democrat leaders are just desperately trying to blow up something in the name of stopping Trump to appease their party's toxic base. Republicans don't need Democrat votes to pass the short-term spending bill. They just need enough Democrat senators to refuse to block a floor vote. So far, Schumer's held his conference together in filibustering the measure as he demands Republicans accept a $1.5 trillion addition to health care subsidies. Again, simply to keep the government funded into November. $1.5 trillion, folks. That works out to roughly $100 billion a week in blackmail payments. And basically what the Post ends up saying here, and I think it's kind of an interesting point. They wrap it up by saying maybe Schumer and Jeffries are privately hoping moderates will prevent a shutdown. Maybe they figure the spectacle of government closure will appease their base enough that it doesn't get even more destructive. After years of humoring the far left to keep the party together, they seem to think they're simply stuck riding the tiger. Finally, as we talk about Schumer, I think we've had a different piece from different outlets each day this week calling Schumer toxic, calling him out in his political party leadership. The Washington Post says why some Democrat Senate candidates are saying, well, we'll say heck no to Schumer. Yes, there's all these candidates for Senate that are running as far away from Schumer as possible. And this all goes back to the fact that they don't believe he's been enough of the face of the resistance. Dan Janison says the Mandami effect outside of New York City, that this kind of socialist party of the Democrat Party, the wing, I should say, of the Democrat Party is growing more popular. Cuomo saying that the mayoral race shows a Democrat Party civil war. That's Andrew Cuomo. All right, we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't believe how much we missed covering, too. But we had a lot of great conversations. Thank you to Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker for being our guest. Also, thank you to our friends from San Giovanni, Valdarno, Italy, for joining us as well. It's always fun to have them on. Safe travels. I hope you have a great rest of your trip. It is wrapping up quickly. All right, we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. I look forward to it already. See you at 6 a.m.